Good afternoon. Welcome to Maison Française. I am happy to introduce the first event of the second season of our museum series that are dedicated to French art and culture in American museums. So we'll start today with Dumbarton Oaks, a wonderful museum and gardens a few minutes away from the French Embassy. We are honored to virtually welcome three prestigious guests tonight. Tom Cummins, the director of the Dumbarton Oaks, Yota Batsaki, the executive director, and James Carter, the institutional historian. Thanks to both three of you to be with us tonight. So the three of them will be in discussion with our wonderful moderator, Faya Kose. Faya is a scholar and educator whose interests range in era from the Paleolithic to the present. She started her career as a professor of art history in California and recently retired as the head of academic programs at the National Gallery of Art in Washington, D.C. At the NGA, she oversaw the internship and fellowship programs, as well as developed the weekly public programs, including lectures, symposium, and seminars presented by artists, historians, conservators, collectors, and curators. And she was often serving as a moderator as tonight. So Faya's advanced degrees are from the University of California, Santa Barbara. Although her primary field is ancient art and her best-known books on amber, she has also published on the German modernist Sigmar Polke, Michelangelo, and on Paul Cézanne. Most recently, she contributed essays for the exhibition catalog, Cézanne, the Rock, and Quarry paintings. Faya continues to be very involved in many cultural institutions, serving on local and national boards. Among them, Hillwood Estate Museum and Gardens and the Archaeological Institute of America. Recently, she was elected as a member of La Société Paul Cézanne and also a fellow of one of the oldest educational charities in the world, the Society of Antiquaries of London. Faya, Tom, Yota, and James, thank you a lot for being with us tonight, and I leave you the floor for this very promising museum series. Thank you.
Thank you, Denis, and thank you behind the scenes, Laura Bauda, for coordinating all of this. Good evening. Our program tonight features one of the jewels of the Washington, D.C. area, Dumbarton Oaks. DO, as it is sometimes called, is a Harvard University Research Institute, library, museum, and garden located in historic Georgetown. It is the legacy of Robert and Mildred Bliss, philanthropists and collectors of art, and you'll hear more about them this evening. The gardens, designed by renowned landscape gardener Beatrix Ferrand, is an oasis within the city. There are 16 acres of grounds to explore, terrace gardens and vistas, orchards, kitchen gardens, meadows, and wooded pathways. The museum is home to a world-class collection of Byzantine and pre-Columbian art, housed in magnificent galleries. From the tapestries and paintings in the Renaissance-inspired music room, to the graceful lines and natural sunlight of the pre-Columbian gallery, you, visitors, can admire art dating back to antiquity, as well as innovative special exhibitions. Their website is marvelous. Entrance to the museum is always free. As Denis mentioned at the beginning, we will visit Dumbarton Oaks and its past with the director, Tom Cummins, with James Carter, historian, archivist, and former curator at the institution, and with Yota Batsaki, executive director. After the three presentations, there'll be time for questions. First up, Thomas B.F. Cummins is the Dumbarton Oaks Professor of the History of Pre-Columbian and Colonial Art in the Department of the History of Art and Architecture, Harvard University, and Director of Dumbarton Oaks. In 2016 and 2019, he was Professeur Invité, l'École des Hautes Études en Sciences Sociales in Paris. He's published over 100 essays and 11 books, winning 2 prestigious book prizes along the way. Among his other contributions, he is the editor-in-chief of the Grove Encyclopedia of Latin American Art. He is a fellow of the American Academy of Arts and Sciences and a very important prize. He was the recipient of the Order of Merit for Distinguished Services, Grand Cruz grade bestowed by the Republic of Peru. Of his many current projects, I just chose one. He is the co-director of the Getty Foundation Connecting Art History Grant, Afro-Latin American Art, Building the Field 2022 to 2024. Tom.
Thank you, Faya, and welcome all of you in this land of virtual imagery. I wish that we could be hosting you here at Dumbarton Oaks. And my task here is really to introduce you to one of the most beautiful places in Washington that also serves as the home of the humanities, as the Blisses said when they bequeathed it to Harvard beginning in 1940. It is first and foremost a research center that hosts up to 50 scholars per semester. That means that we have housing for them, food, but most important, we have food for thought. We have both the library and other facilities for them, but also the garden, which you are all invited to visit, and I really would want to see you there. It's one of the great treasures of Washington, D.C., of Harvard, and of the United States, and of the world. It's been recognized as such. But for the scholars, it was always intended to be a place for repose, to place to gather your thoughts, and then go back to do your work. And those scholars are in three main areas: pre-Columbian, Byzantine, and garden and landscape. And those three areas, although seemingly unconnected, are connected actually through the Blisses themselves. They bestowed not only the grounds and the gardens by Beatrix Farren, but also their collections. And the areas have grown in study from those collections. And they have been generative in all areas. Maya hieroglyphs were discovered to be read systematically here. Byzantine work at Hagia Sophia was done here. These areas and gardens, of course, across the country. It has been a very important intellectual center for all three areas, but it also welcomes you all to it as well. This is the main house, as you see here, and that's where some of the offices are, but also one is welcomed, as you will see, into parts of the house. The most important is the music room, because music is the other component of Dumbarton Oaks, and I know that James will be speaking about that afterwards, but we still have concerts, and they're open. Well, they're not open to the public yet, but we will get there. And we have concerts that are really enlivening, but for the soul, and we open them to the public with subscription. So we try as best as we can to make Dumbarton Oaks accessible to you all. And as I said, we have the collections in Byzantine, pre-Columbian, rare books, and the rare books, as you'll hear about, began with garden landscape. But we also have a collection of architecture, which people don't quite recognize. We have McKee, Mead, and White, beautiful buildings by them. Then we have Philip Johnson's best building ever, and we'll see. And then we have Robert Venturi's library, 5 stories, but you can't see it from the outside. A beautiful building, and we are going to be adding to that by a new building by Annabelle Seldorf. So our collections are multiple, of various media and of various interests, of which you all are welcome to come see. Next slide, please. And these are just, this is just one, this is the looking from what the last slide, looking down this planet, is just to show you that in the springtime, that's when you want to be here, or in the fall. Summer, you're welcome, but it is hot, as you know. It's just stupendous. The colors The maintenance, we have a tremendous staff that takes care of these gardens for you. And you do have to make an appointment at this point simply to control numbers of people in here. And we do charge, but not in the winter. Next slide, please. And this is my favorite building, not only because I am a pre-Columbianist, and this is where I always go first, but I have to say it is one of the most spectacular museum buildings ever created. It is a set of concentrically oriented circular shapes, like a jewel box in a sense, it's called that. But what is really unbelievable about this building is that it takes pre-Columbian art seriously as being an art that is integrated between architecture and nature. And the glass walls and the use of glass, it's not glass, I can't think of the word all of a sudden, allows this visibility of interior, exterior, as you see these incredible objects, some of which actually are enlivened during certain times of the year when the sun comes through and actually pierces them. It really brings them alive. And so I really invite you to come to see the collection, but also to see the building. It is spectacular. Next slide, please. And so what is the Paris connection? Well, the Paris connection and the French connection is immediate. This is the first pre-Columbian piece that was bought by Robert Bliss. He bought it in, he began to purchase it in 1913 in Paris. And he finally paid for it at the Brummer Gallery in 1914. It is one of the foundational pieces that I know James is going to talk about. So I will stop there, other than to say it's also one of my favorite pieces. These are really extremely beautiful, early 1300 BC to 750 BC sculptures. And you have to understand that this is a freestanding sculpture with incredible volume and positive and negative space. This is all carved without any metal. It is an extraordinary piece, both technically and aesthetically. And so that is one of the Paris connections. And Faya?
Yes. And I asked Tom, do you have have any favorites? Do you?
Yes, I do. I have one particular favorite. They're all my favorites. I mean, there's so many wonderful things, but there's one that always draws my attention. Next slide, please. No, we had it out of order. I'm sorry. It's what's the most famous piece that we have?
There we are. We have the most famous one. Sorry.
And the most famous one is a goddess of the Aztec, the goddess of filth and birth. And this is the piece that you see here. And Tlazatliotl, as she's known in Nahuatl. But it's the most famous because millions of people have seen it all over the world. As you can see in the Raiders of the Lost Ark, it's the first thing that Indiana Jones discovers. And here it is in gold as he comes to gather it. But what's really interesting about this is it was also bought in Paris. It was in a collection by Augustin Alexis Damore, who was a mineralogist, who sold it then to an optometrist in Paris in 1902, and then again sold to Joseph Brummer in 1933. And it was then purchased by Robert Bliss in the New York Gallery coming from Paris in 1947. So that gives it a real provenance from Paris, but the real provenance of this piece is it's a fake. It's the only fake that we have on view. We've done all the analysis, and so it's a wonderful example. If you were to visit the pre-Columbian galleries, you will see it as one of the very first pieces as you come in. And we do name that it is a fake, but it is our most famous piece. Not our best, but it's our best fake. Then my favorite piece is one that looks right at it, actually. Next slide, please. Which is a piece that was found in Madrid at an antiquity store. And Royal Tyler wrote, and you'll hear more about him, to Robert Bliss, saying, I found this Aztec mirror in the shop. You'll love it, and I'll send it to you. And the correspondence is wonderful. Mr. Bliss said, yes, please send it to me. Be very, very careful. Send it in a diplomatic package, but really wrap it up because I don't want it broken. Well, you can guess what happened. It broke. But what's interesting is it's not a mirror. It is one of the few colonial pieces that intersects between the Aztec, the Byzantine, and the colonial worlds. Because what it really is a portable altar. And what you see in the wood, that's the back of it, is the symbol of the Franciscans. And what makes this really a magical piece is that that's obsidian that is the table on which the Mass and the consecration of the host would be said. And medieval portable altars are similar because they have porphyry usually as the covering. And though that stone was always seen as being quasi-magical, obsidian for the Aztec is absolutely magical. It is the sign of nobility and of the gods. And so what you see here is this amalgamation of the cosmos of different religions and materiality in this incredible piece that was one of the few pieces, or only colonial piece, that Robert Bliss and the Blisses ever collected. And with that, I think I've said I was going to be 5 minutes.
Can you show us with your hands how big it is?
It's this big.
Yes, yes. Very impressive. And now we go to James Carter. Thank you, Tom. James Carter is an art historian by training, and for 27 years was a curator and archivist at Dumbarton Oaks, as well as adjunct professor in the Department of Art History at the George Washington University. For most of his life, James has been an enthusiast of and advocate for the arts and humanities with a penchant for medieval art and architecture, classical music, and garden and landscape design. James also has authored and contributed to several books, including Home of the Humanities, The Collecting and Patronage of Mildred and Robert Woods Bliss, which includes his essays on the Blisses and their collections, as well as the architectural history of Dumbarton Oaks. James retired in 2019 and moved permanently to a farmhouse outside Cambridge, Maryland, and that's where we're talking to him. Please, James.
Thank you, Faya, and thank you for inviting me to participate in this presentation on Dumbarton Oaks, and welcome to all those who have tuned in. As Tom said, the Dumbarton Oaks Research Library and Collection exists because of its founders, these two people on the screen, Mildred and Robert Woods Bliss. They had the vision and the means not only to enhance the architecture and interiors of the Dumbarton Oaks property, but also to oversee the creation of a world-class garden, equally famous art and rare book collections, and a scholarly library and archives that would enrich humanistic interest and research for generations to come. All this they gave to Harvard University, as Tom said, in 1940, Harvard being Robert Bliss's alma mater. Mildred and Robert Bliss married in 1908 at the beginning of Robert's diplomatic career in the US Foreign Service. He would eventually reach the rank of ambassador to Argentina before retiring in 1933. Next slide, please. In 1912, Robert Bliss was posted to Paris as secretary of the US Embassy. The Blisses took this apartment that you see on the screen with an interior of their salon in the 7th arrondissement, an apartment that they would keep until 1933. The decade that the Blisses spent in Paris proved significant and influential in, I think, two important ways. First, beginning in 1914, the Blisses witnessed firsthand the horror and destruction of the First World War, an experience which heightened their interest to safeguard culture as best they could. And two, they began to build their art collection under the direction and encouragement of Mildred Bliss's lifelong friend, Royal Tyler. Next slide, please. During the war, the Blisses privately supported numerous aid organizations, especially through the anonymous purchase of these 28 ambulances for the American Field Service, which they were also founders of. These ambulances were used to transport injured, as well as to supply hospitals throughout France. When America entered the war in 1917, Mildred Bliss was named Executive Board Chairman of the American Red Cross's Women's War Relief Corps. And for their service during the war, both Mildred and Robert Bliss were created Chevalier of the Order of the Légion d'Honneur. Next slide, please. During the war, Robert Bliss drove through France to see firsthand the German destruction. And he took these photographs of damaged buildings. And later in the album that he created, he photographed the festivities of the 1918 armistice. Several have speculated, and I am among them, that a primary reason for the Blisses' gift of Dumbarton Oaks to Harvard at the height of the Second World War was due to their experience of the First World War and their hope that Harvard would be better able to protect Dumbarton Oaks should the Germans invade the US. Next slide, please. Also in Paris, the Blisses met up with Mildred's friend, Royal Tyler. He was an expat, an amateur art connoisseur who had moved to Europe in the 1890s, never to return to America. Next slide, please. When the Blisses first came to Paris, they were interested in collecting French medieval artworks, including this beautiful Ile-de-France Gothic Virgin and Child, which you see displayed on the mantle in their Parisian apartment salon. Next slide, please. However, under Tyler's guidance and encouragement, the Blisses began to explore the art galleries of Paris that offered more exotic fare, often brand new to the market. Most important among them was the gallery of Joseph Brummer on the Boulevard Raspail, which Tom mentioned as being the gallery where the Blisses bought the Olmec figurine that he showed. Next slide, please. There and at similar galleries, the Blisses would become infatuated with artworks from cultures they considered as exotic, or the phrase of the time, primitive, including artworks from pre-Columbian cultures and from Byzantium that would eventually make up the core of their collection. All of these artworks seen in this particular slide represent artworks, including the painting by Matisse, that were acquired by the Blisses in Paris during the decade that they resided there. Next slide, please. As Tom pointed out, most significant of these early purchases from Brummer was this Olmec jadeite figurine. Robert Bliss later reminisced that with the discovery and acquisition of this small sculpture, he was infected with the collector's microbe, an incurable malady, according to him, that took deep roots. Next slide, please. Royal Tyler's special passion, however, was for the arts of Byzantium, and his enthusiasm for Byzantine art also infected the Blisses. Both with his recommendations and also on their own volition, the Blisses would acquire hundreds of Byzantine works, including this patent from an important 6th century silver treasure. Next slide, please. The Blisses were also greatly interested in the art of their time and acquired paintings by Matisse, Degas, Seurat, and Matisse, among others. In 1918, they acquired this painting, incidentally, Faya, my favorite painting in the collection, Degas' Song Rehearsal, a work that Degas began in New Orleans in the music room of his brother's house. Next slide, please. In late 1920, the Blisses acquired this 1801 Georgetown property that they would later name Dumbarton Oaks. Their initial interest was to renovate the house in an Anglo-American Georgian style to create a country manor house in the city, as Robert Bliss termed it. Next slide, please. However, while in Paris, Mildred Bliss had become acquainted with the Parisian designer Armand Albert Rateau, who did work for her at the Blisses' apartment. Next slide, please. When the Blisses added a music room, as you see here, to Dumbarton Oaks in the later 1920s, they commissioned Rateau to create a reproduction French Renaissance ceiling, modeled closely on the ceiling in the Salle des Gardes at the Château de Chevigny in the Loire Valley. Ceiling was built and painted in Rateau's workrooms in Paris and then shipped in crates to Washington to be installed. Next slide, please. The success of the ceiling led the Blisses to rethink other interiors at Dumbarton Oaks. These interiors, as for example here the Oval Salon, had been designed in an English neoclassical style for the Blisses by their first architect, Frederick Brooke. The Blisses asked Rateau to redesign them in a more French neoclassical style, which is exactly what he did. In the upper left, you can see the original salon, the Oval Salon, as Brooke had designed it, and then the overlay of boiseries that was created by Rateau in Paris, and again, shipped to Dumbarton Oaks to be installed. Next slide, please. To complement to complement the new Rateau interiors, the Blisses acquired period French 18th century furnishings. And these pieces were really museum quality pieces, often marked with the brands of famous French ébénistes. Next slide, please. This enthusiasm for a new French overlay at Dumbarton Oaks led to other important changes as well. For example, the Beatrix Ferrand designed tennis court, which you see in the upper left, was changed into a French parterre-inspired pebble water feature by the architect Ruth Havey. Her design focuses on 3 lead sculptures at the north end. Next slide, please. And here they are. These sculptures are attributed to the 18th century sculptor Edmé Bouchardon, and they may have been taken from the Parc de Versailles at the time of the French Revolution. Next slide, please. Once again, Armand Albert Rateau provided the impetus for their use at Dumbarton Oaks, as seen in his drawing, which includes a sculpture in the center of Neptune, which the Blisses did not acquire. And all sculptures are placed against a rocaille textured wall similar to that of their installation in the gardens at Dumbarton Oaks. Next slide, please. Other French-inspired modifications include the prominent R Street gates seen here at the top with Beatrix Ferrand's arts and crafts-inspired early version, and at the bottom with Ruth Havey's replacement inspired by French Baroque garden gates. And next slide, please. The Blisses, as you can see, were ardent Francophiles. Their time in Paris brought about the beginnings of their renowned collection and a deep appreciation for French culture, not only in the visual arts, but also in music. Mildred Bliss, for example, was a friend and patron of the composer and pedagogue Nadia Boulanger. But the Blisses had also closely experienced the horrors of war, as I mentioned, in Paris. and this may have directly contributed to their decision to give their research institution and collection to Harvard, not at the time of their deaths as originally planned, but in 1940, a year after the onset of the Second World War. At the conclusion of the Second World War, the Blisses yet again undertook philanthropic work in France. Mildred Bliss, seen here in California in her uniform of the American Women's Voluntary Services and standing near the composer Igor Stravinsky. As you probably know, she had commissioned the Dumbarton Oaks Concerto in 1938 from Stravinsky. Mildred had gone to France to survey the damage to French villages caused by Allied bombing. As a result of the survey that she did, the Blisses supplied humanitarian aid, including medicines, food, building and household supplies, and anything else needed, to two French villages, La Loupe and Pont-à-Mousson. Next slide, please. The Dumbarton Oaks Research Facility was open to fellows and scholars in 1941. Also that year, the gardens, designed by Beatrix Farrand and Ruth Havey, were open to the public, as were the music room and the Byzantine Gallery. The Pre-Columbian Gallery, designed by Philip Johnson, an image of which you saw in a larger format in Tom's presentation, was added and opened in 1963. In addition, the rare book room and library, which Yoda will talk about in a moment, was added that same year. And Yoda will also discuss the music program at Dumbarton Oaks, which the Blisses sponsored beginning in 1946. To me, Dumbarton Oaks is a special place, a home of the humanities, as Mildred Bliss famously described it. And Dumbarton Oaks remains true to the Blisses' vision, now some 80 years after their creation of the institution and their gift of it to Harvard. Thank you.
Thank you, James. Before we let you go, we have a couple of questions. Also one which either you or Tom could answer. The first one is, how big is the Olmec figure?
It's about this big.
Okay, good. All right, next question. Was the Blisses collecting opportunistic, methodical, directed? Did their style of collecting evolve? I think you answered some of those questions, but in case you want to say something else.
I'll field that one. It's very clear from correspondence and from what they retained and what they sold off that the Blisses acquired what they loved. Eventually, they wanted to fill in lacunae in both the Byzantine and Pre-Columbian collections, and yet in doing that, they would only accept what they considered outstanding works of art. This is not, Dumbarton Oaks does not have encyclopedic collections. It has collections that are meant to display the very best of the cultures that produce the works. Robert Bliss, in his Pre-Columbian collection, as I think Tom can attest, was also interested to elevate art from Pre-Columbian cultures from the dusty archaeological and anthropological cases that they had resided in heretofore and elevate them to star quality works of art. And the Philip Johnson Gallery with its plexiglass cases where the objects seem to float in midair against the light shining in through the glass walls is the ideal expression of this interest to make these works artworks rather than artifacts.
There are two questions that are, one of them is, were the Blisses active in Parisian salon while they were in Paris?
Again, I'll take that. They were. They had a pretty traditional Parisian salon. Musicians performed for dinner guests. Paderewski played on their piano in their Parisian salon. They probably hosted most of the diplomatic visitors to Paris that came through the US Embassy at one time or another. Incidentally, Mildred Bliss kept a very informative diary, which is in the Bliss archives at Harvard University. And all of the dinner guests that came to their house in Paris are listed. And it's really quite an interesting roster of the who's who of the time.
Wow. Well, then one last one, maybe for you. What types of books are in the collections shelved in the two oval rooms in the salon?
They're fake books for the most part. What you saw in the image where I mentioned the French furniture, you're really looking at two doors, one to a closet on the right and one to a passageway on the left. And the book spines are true leather, gilt embellished spines, but they're completely phony. And they are two-dimensional. They're just pasted on those doors to suggest bookshelves. What you didn't see in that room are actual bookshelves on the opposite wall, bookshelves that unfortunately held very small, beautifully bound volumes, now in the rare book collection and protected by humidity and temperature control. And the only things that really can fit on those small shelves today are paperbacks, which is not, I think, Dumbarton Oak's choice.
Actually, we've changed that.
Oh, what do you have there?
So we have the Dumbarton Oak's collection of medieval.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. So they're very nice. It's a very nice series that is in keeping with the mission.
Wonderful. And then for the moment, we have one last question. Where did the Blisses get their money?
Mildred Bliss is the child of Anna Dorinda Barnes and her father, who was a speculative investor in patent medicines. And he made it big with Fletcher's Castoria, which was the principal product of which was a child's laxative, castor oil. And he unfortunately died in a hit and run collision by a horse and buggy on Broadway in New York City. And his wife and Mildred inherited a really vast fortune, which was very well managed and survived the crash of the 1930s. She also inherited from her stepsister, Cora Barnes, who died in 1911 and left the bulk of her estate, some $12 million at the time, to Mildred. And then in 1935, when her mother died, she inherited all of her mother's money. So she was a triple heiress in a sense. And that's where the money came from.
Thank you, James. There's one last question for the moment, and that is, did the Blisses attend the funeral for the sculptor Rodin?
That I can't answer, sorry.
All right. Well, James and everyone listening, now perhaps you know why James is often referred to as the institutional memory of Dumbarton Oaks. Thank you very much.
You're welcome, Faya. Thank you.
Thank you. And now we're going to turn to Yoda Batsaki, who is the executive director of Dumbarton Oaks. Before joining the institution in 2011, she earned a PhD in English and French literature at Harvard and taught at Cambridge University in the UK. Born in Guatemala and raised in Greece, she enjoys and has experienced the diversity of cultures and traditions represented in the Dumbarton Oak collections. She's published widely too on Greek, English, and French literature and culture. Among her most recent projects is a recent exhibition at Dumbarton Oaks on women botanical artists. This brought the riches of the rare book collection out into the public museum space and was one of the really jewels of the possibility of going into a museum and seeing an exhibition of new works. And many names were in the process of research discovered, and we got to see that new research right on the walls. Another of her projects is an essay on the art of Anselm Kiefer in a response to the environmental crisis. She lives in Cleveland Park with her French husband and her 2 teenage daughters. Yota, now it's your turn to take us around.
Bonsoir à tous. Un grand merci à Faya Kosi et Denis Quenel pour leur accueil. As Faya mentioned, I used to be a teacher of the English and French Enlightenment in a previous life. So I gravitate naturally toward the rare book library at Dumbarton Oaks, where the French spirit is strongly felt. The room was designed by Frederick Rhinelander King and completed in 1963, the same year as the Pre-Columbian Pavilion by Philip Johnson, which gives you an idea of how eclectic and open the Blisses were in their tastes and commissions. And the room was inspired, as you can see, by French 18th century styles. Today, it serves as a reading room, just as it did in Mrs. Bliss's time, but it is also open to the public on weekends between 11:30 and 5:30. Next slide, please. The rare book collection holds some notable French rarities and treasures, such as the album of flowers and insects you see on the right, by the 16th century botanical painter Jacques Lemoine de Morgue. Mildred Bliss's search for his works culminated in the acquisition around 1960 of a pocket-sized album with 8 flower miniatures, including this rose with caterpillar. And I learned from our rare book curator, Anatole Chikin, who is the real expert, that the unusual gold background, unusual for a botanical illustration, is reminiscent of decorated books of hours and elevates a garden plant into a precious object of collecting. The image on the left is by the most famous botanical artist of 19th century Paris, Pierre-Joseph Redouté. Mildred Bliss had a strong interest in Redouté's work, both because of his artistic stature and his floral subject matter, and she collected some of his original watercolors, as well as the printed volumes he illustrated with stipple engravings, such as this rose from his beautiful Les Roses. Next slide, please. The collection also contains rare and significant publications on the history of gardens and landscapes, which inform research and study for our Garden Landscape Studies program, and includes the 17th century view of Versailles by Israël Sylvestre, in a book of plates put together from different sets of prints by Gilles de Mortain in the early 18th century. Mortain's publication traced the transformation of Versailles from the royal hunting chateau under the Sun King's father, Louis XIII, into the sumptuous seat of the French court. Next slide, please. As Faya indicated, Mrs. Bliss valued and was an avid collector of women botanical artists, and they were the subject of our most recent exhibition. We don't have photography yet, so we have to do with this design sketch, but it gives you an idea. Entitled Portraits of Plants, the show was the first time the rare book collection entered in a big way the public museum space, as Faya mentioned. And it focused on Mildred Bliss's last important acquisition of 21 beautiful paintings of Amazonian flora by Margaret Mee, a British botanical artist, explorer, and early environmentalist and advocate for the preservation of the Amazon. This exhibition view shows on the right an example of Mee's work. The 2 yellow and red heliconias, tropical beauties of the botanical world, demonstrate why Mee is so admired by both scientists and art connoisseurs. The scientific accuracy of her paintings is matched by their beautiful composition and vibrant color. And because she collected and sketched in the field in the Amazon, her works are truly portraits of plants, unique organisms that command our attention and empathy. While the Portraits of Plants exhibition is now only available online, A new one will be on display by late February, featuring stunning new photos of the garden across the seasons and supplemented by archival material from the Rare Book Library pertaining to its design to celebrate the garden's centennial this summer. While many DC residents still think of us as a collection frozen in time, at Dumbarton Oaks, tradition walks hand in hand with innovation. Next slide, please. We welcome the public to our concerts in the music room, to temporary exhibitions in the museum. Next slide, please. This from 2018 was by local artist Martha Jackson Jarvis, and it was both in the garden and the museum and was a wonderful show. And the last slide, please. Specific, site-specific contemporary art installations, such as this one, The Cloud, by Andy Cow and French-born landscape artist Xavier Perrault. Si vous aimez la musique, les arts visuels, l'histoire, la diplomatie, les jardins ou les livres, Dumbarton Oaks est un lieu où vous pouvez apprendre et vous détendre. En somme, vous aérez le corps et l'esprit. So come visit us. Thank you, Paya.
Thank you, Jota. Thank you very much. Jota, I also didn't mention one other project that you've been, that we discussed that we might, and that is the other larger project that you are working on, which is connecting, in a way, kind of connecting art histories, but we'll come back to that. We have two questions from the audience. One of them is, maybe this is a James question, but for everybody, did the Blisses have children?
I'll take it.
Okay.
No, they did not.
Okay.
They actually, Mildred Bliss wrote a letter to Elisina Tyler, Royal Tyler's wife, when Elisina Tyler announced that she was pregnant with a son. The son would be William Tyler, who was the second director of Dumbarton Oaks. And Mildred Bliss wrote back congratulating the event and saying that she and Robert had hoped for a long time to have children and that they still hoped to be able to conceive, but apparently that never happened.
And we have one other question, and this is to you, Dr. Cummins. Dr. Cummins, you mentioned hosting fellows. What are some of the recent research projects carried out at DO that have most excited you? I know you love all the children equally.
No, I think this goes to a point that Yoda made, is that we are not simply stuck in time. That is, we continuously just do the same thing over and over again. We have two new initiatives that bring fellows here, both Mellon funded actually. One is in plant humanities, and Yoda is in charge of that. But also we have a Mellon grant that Thaisa Wei has developed that has expanded the way that we look at landscape and gardens throughout the world, but with an emphasis on inclusion, thinking about really different ways of going about the study of gardens and landscape outside what one would think of looking at plans and of the beauty of gardens. It's really to think about this world as integral to the nation and this nation and other nations. And I think that that kind of expansive notion of what we study and thinking about new projects is what all academics strive for, don't always accomplish, but look forward to. And so for me, these are exciting things. Of course, you know, I'm always interested in pre-Columbian because that's my field. And I was originally a medievalist, so Byzantine is, you know, incredible interest to me. We're having and the other aspect that we're doing, I would say, is we're trying to bring the three areas together on mutual topics, where they talk to each other about certain kinds of concerns. And next fall, there will be a project in which Garden Landscape, Byzantine, and Pre-Columbian all bring scholars here to talk about climate change as it pertains to their fields. And this will be open to the public. And I believe it will be open to the public. I sincerely hope that it will be open to the public. So these are some of the other things that we're doing. We're also building in this new structure, the Ferrand House, a studio for an artist. So we will have an artist here working alongside. So there's multiple avenues that we're exploring and working towards. The other is bringing centers of humanities here to talk about the future of humanities and where we want to go. And we purchased a structure so that we can have this kind of convening power. So the multiple new as well as old.
Thank you, Tom. We have some other questions. I think I will, some of them are marvelous. Are you organizing outside events in summer? When will live concerts return to the music room? So perhaps you want to, I think you have touched on those, but perhaps answer those questions.
So, well, the gardens are open now and the museum is open now. So that will only increase. That is, we're talking about increasing the hours and increasing the numbers of people who can come in. And we are having concerts, but at the last concert, where we had to cancel the concert in January, we just had a marvelous, I mean, really unbelievable concert, but it was only open to the fellows, I'm afraid, and staff. But the next concert in April, we plan on having one night open to the public. So we desperately want to open to the public all of the events that are open to the public. I became director when the pandemic began, and I can tell you I have no idea what normal is here, but I want to bring it back to as close as normal and better than ever. But it's step by step, I'm afraid to say.
Well, maybe Yoda will. Sorry.
Just quickly, also, there is an exhibition in the museum, Lasting Impressions on Our Byzantine Seals. We digitized our almost 20,000 seals, and to celebrate that, there's an exhibition that's well worth seeing in the museum. Yes. Sorry.
I want to plug that exhibition as well, because now I say this with all sincerity, it's not just because it's Dumbarton Oaks. The museum staff has done an incredible job to make very small things very large in terms of their importance and how you look at these things. It really is an exhibition that goes beyond the objects themselves to really immerse you into why we do collect these things, why it's important to collect them, and why it's important to see them, not both historically, but aesthetically as well. So it's really, I'm glad you mentioned that, Yoda, because it's really just a fantastic job.
We have another question about the institution, and that is, what will be the next contemporary artists or artists that you host?
Well, I can't say because that is in negotiation right now. And so I would love to be able to tell you. We do have one signed artist, don't we? Yoda.
Well, we don't have, so we have two things. We have an artist that's very exciting that we're working on, as Tom said, but we cannot announce it yet. We are also piloting a program of research artist residencies, and we will have the first one in the fall, and that will be announced with our other fellows in a few weeks' time. And the idea is to actually bring artists to Dumbarton Oaks for a significant period of time, several weeks or a couple of months, to engage with the collections and sort of absorb the site and the community and come up with a proposal for a site-specific installation.
But I guarantee we have a very exciting, forward-looking program. We just can't, we're not ready to say precisely what it is.
Well, as I started talking about how wonderful your website is, very easy to use, and you have the equivalent of what's on or what's coming up, and it's a marvelous site. And if you want to know more about the staff, you can find out the bios there, including the rare book librarian that Jutta mentioned, our friend Anatole. I just wanted to ask for you, while we still have time, one question, if I may. How much did Beatrix Farron and Miss Havey influence the collection of books collected by Mrs. Bliss? Is that a Jutta question or a James question, or both?
I'm happy for James. I think he can answer it better. What I know is that Mildred Bliss and Beatrix Farron collaborated closely on the selection of books for the rare book collection and agreed for the most part. And the goal was to assemble research materials for the garden's design. But there were also moments when their opinions parted, and especially Mildred was interested in the work of women botanical artists and botanical illustration. And my understanding is that was not the primary interest of Beatrix Farron. But James, is that your perception?
That's exactly right. And I think Beatrix Farron saw the garden, it sounds self-serving in a way on her part, but she saw the garden as being an artistic creation that should have a scholarly apparatus to back it up. And she very generously gave all of the preparatory drawings and finished drawings for the gardens, and they number in the many hundreds, if not thousands, and they're kept in the rare book collection. She gave those directly to Dumbarton Oaks so that there would be this visual record of the creativity behind the gardens. And then she sent Mildred Bliss a multi-page list of books that she should acquire if she was able to. And Mildred ran with that. That was her last great collection. She was also in competition with Bunny Mellon at Oak Springs, who was also collecting rare materials. And I think the fact that there was a competitor in the field spurred Mildred Bliss on. And again, she only wanted the very best editions, the best condition, the earliest edition, if they were autographed in any way, she wanted that instead of an unautographed copy. This was a collection.
We have a couple more questions, but one of them, I would say, it's about the fellows and fellowships. And I would send the people who have asked us questions about those to the website, where it is one of the most articulate responses to questions about what kind of fellowships, who is eligible for them, and when are the due dates and so forth. But I do want to point out that several people have asked, is it possible, for people who are using Greek literature in their teaching, is it possible to use the library if there's a specific rare book or a specific group of books for those purposes? Is that you, Jutta?
Yes, the Rare Book Library is open by appointment to external researchers, and I'll try to find in a moment if you write at library@doaks.org, DOAKS.org, you will be redirected.
And it's not open right now, though.
No, but I believe that the plan is to start again with, because these are it's a small space and we can control the number of people there. But we have had to suspend the use of the library for our readers, really because of the pandemic and density, because the library is filled with the fellows. but we want to bring that up as soon as possible.
Yes.
And the other thing that our museum team has been doing are object study sessions virtually for university classes. So that's another component worth looking into.
Well, I hope you feel, as many of our people who have written to us, a real interest and excitement about Dumbarton Oaks and its history. And want to thank all of you for this, and for the unseen people behind the scenes who've made this program with 3 participants from Dumbarton Oaks such a success. Thank you very much. And we want to thank the French Embassy, the Cultural Attaché, the Villa Albertine, and all of you at Dumbarton Oaks and Harvard. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Faya.
Thank you.
Thank you, Faya.
Thank you, Faya.